I was wondering if you could tell me what kind of themes that you like to invest in, what really interests you.
Just sort of our criteria?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost is sort of the commitment to an environmental or social impact. We are an early stage, and I'll get into that in a second, an early stage angel investor group that is focused on companies that are really committed to building a sustainable economy. And what we mean by that is any company, sort of social enterprise seems to be the buzzword of the day, but that's committed to making a very large environmental or social impact. So in terms of criteria that we look for is obviously that commitment, but then companies that are usually trying to raise anywhere from $250,000 to, we say $3 million, because I do think between our combination of social venture funds, angels, foundations, we have the ability to commit that much.
Yes.
But I would say that the average is probably closer to $1 million. And I would say other things include, we have, sort of 6 or 7 different sectors that we look at, ranging from energy and environmental solutions, community and international development, education, social media and software, sustainable consumer products, so those sorts of things. So quite a few different verticals.
Yeah.
Other criteria that are important include sort of obviously relevant experience from management. I would argue that our investors have a pretty demonstrable proclivity for investing in serial entrepreneurs, people that have done it before. Proven success and sort of skin in the game. So they really like to see, either money that's been raised from friends and family, or ideally that the entrepreneur, him or herself, has invested some of their own capital. Other criteria that are important include, one that's very important is market traction. So there's a lot of confusion around this amorphous early stage definition. So, we see everything from companies that have products in development, very seed, I would argue much more seed stage opportunities, to some later stage companies that are really looking for expansion capital. And our sweet spot is a company that has really has gone to market and demonstrated that there's demand for their product or service. So we don't have a hard and fast revenue number for any one of the sectors in which we operate, but I would say that what we require from virtually every company that comes our way is, again, some validation that there is market demand for their product. And so whether that's in the form of revenues, contracts, strategic partnerships, retail distribution, whatever it may be, just really like to see some form of evidence that there's a market for this.
Yeah, brilliant. And is there anything that really interests you when an entrepreneur is pitching, that makes you sort of almost know that you want to invest in that person? Is there any particular criteria that you personally really get you going?
Sure. So I see, we receive probably 500 to 600 applications a year. So from sort of just a paper standpoint, what I really look for in management is, and it's hard for this to come through in an application, and then I'll also talk about people that actually get up on stage and pitch, what I think our investors look for. But what I'm looking for, since I'm doing the screening, is certainly relevant experience. If again, I think our members have, as I mentioned before, an interest in serial entrepreneurs. Clearly, not everybody has started their own company and had a successful exit, and so what I would look for in lieu of that is some demonstrable experience, some relevant experience. So
in that domain,
or just sort of a deep, sort of a personal connection to whatever the issue is that they're trying to address. I think that's most relevant in the international context. I would also say, in the event that they don't have that, they don't have the experience, they haven't started a company, and maybe, if they're younger, so they don't have a long work professional history. Just passion, which I think can it's hard for that to come through on paper. But I think, transitioning into what we like to see on stage, I think that sort of infectious enthusiasm for what they're doing.
Great.
To see people that have, sort of poured their heart and soul into this, because I think that's what a lot of our members are doing with their capital. They want to see people that are capable and committed to catalyzing change. And so I think that can come through on paper.
Yeah.
Other things from entrepreneurs, we love the sort of the Unreasonable Institute, the Echoing Green Fellows, the people who have sort of already gone through these incubators or accelerators.
Yes.
We have partnerships with those programs because they're a little bit more upstream from us. They focus on more of the seed and startup stage companies.
Sure.
So I think those are probably the major things that I look for.
Thank you. And I'm wondering what really excites you when you see a pitch. What's necessary for an entrepreneur in the pitching process to really sell to you and to your members?
Sure. So again, and I guess I kind of got ahead of myself then. In talking about on stage, I think because we typically only give people 10 minutes to get up there and really do their thing. So I think first and foremost, that passion that I talked about, that enthusiasm, because I've had some members tell me that 70% of their decision largely relies upon the entrepreneur. They view it as almost a personal investment as much as sort of a business investment.
Okay.
So again, that infectious enthusiasm that we really like to see. The personal connection to the issue at hand. I think, one mistake that a lot of people make when they get up on stage is they talk about the problem that they're trying to address, which when you come to our group, most of our members have a pretty good sense for what the problem is. So,
yes.
If you're a water company, don't spend 3 to 4 minutes talking about the dearth of water sources and resources in the country.
Okay.
So I just don't think those scare tactics are necessary with our group. They might be with more traditional investors, but I think where people err is spending too much time talking about the problem and not enough time talking about their solution.
Right.
So really trying to go through a thorough, clear, cogent explanation of what their product or service is, and then how it's different. So we're not necessarily looking for the solely revolutionary ideas.
Yes.
If you can build a better mousetrap, just make sure that you tell us why it's better. So I think what that requires is a pretty thorough understanding of the competition.
Yes.
Let us know that you've considered them and really make clear, draw a clear line between your company and other products or services that are out there. Do not make the mistake of saying you're the only one that's out there, because in very, very, very few cases is that going to be true.
Of course.
And I think that's where a lot of people err. One thing that we really like to see is a consideration of the exit possibilities.
Okay.
I think that's a big concern, particularly within our marketplace, the sort of social investing marketplace, because some of these companies aren't necessarily built to be, they're not going to have an IPO, and they're not an obvious acquisition target. Okay. So I think it's important that entrepreneurs think through how our members will not only have preservation of their capital, but ideally some sort of return, which usually is only achieved on some sort of exit.
Got it.
And I think, the one other thing I would say that's pretty important is just a consideration of the use of proceeds. So if you're coming to our group looking for $2 million in capital, how are you going to use that money to help it scale? And that's the one point I should go back to your first question on the criteria.
Yes.
We really look for companies that can scale because, our members really want to make an impact. So the one point that I oftentimes make is, we're not necessarily our members aren't looking to invest in, say, the mom and pop coffee shop, but what they are looking to do is invest in either a coffee shop that can be, can turn into a chain of some sort, or that, that provides good jobs and takes care of people in the community, or sort of a coffee manufacturer, someone that can distribute their coffee all over the world. So I think that scale point is one that I should have made earlier, but that's important.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.